In this video, we're going to do our first proof by the method of contradiction. And this is the one that we're going to do. We're going to prove that the graphs of y equals x squared plus x plus 2 and y equals x minus 2 do not meet. So as usual, I'd like you to write this using symbols. So why don't you do that, and we can compare your answer to mine in a few moments. The condition that these two graphs don't meet just simply says that no matter what x you plug in to this and whatever x you plug into that, they can't come out the same. So it's really a universally quantified statement. It says that for every real number x, x squared plus x plus 2 cannot equal x minus 2. Okay, so make sure you get the quantifier in there, otherwise it's not correct. Now notice this is not a conditional statement. If you were to give a direct proof of it, you would begin by saying let x be a real number, but after that there really isn't anything left to do except to prove that this actually happens. Right? This is sort of the conclusion of what you're trying to get to. All you've got to go by is this x that you've given yourself, this real number x. So it's not all that obvious how you could proceed to prove that two things are not equal to each other. We're much better at proving things are equal to each other. And so you might think to use method of contradiction. So the method of contradiction says, suppose this doesn't happen. Suppose it's not the case that for every x, this is not equal to this. So, and then you try to get a contradiction. So you would start by, so the negation of this is what? The negation is there exists an x such that x squared plus x plus 2 is equal to x minus 2. So we would begin by saying, suppose there exists an x, a real number x, such that this thing is equal to this thing. And then you would manipulate a little bit to see if you could get a contradiction from that. So let's do some calculation to see what's involved with this. So remember, the first step is to assume that the negation of this is true. So let's write down what the negation says. It says there exists a real number x such that the negation of this thing happens. In other words, x squared plus x plus 2 is equal to x minus 2. Okay, so we're going to begin the proof by saying, suppose there exists a real number x such that this happens. And then we'll do a little calculation to see if we can get a contradiction. If you've got x squared plus x plus 2 equal to x minus 2, well, you see the x's cancel off, and we can bring the 2's over to the right-hand side and get x squared equals minus 4. And that's, of course, impossible because x is real, and when you square any real number, you can't get something negative. So that's the idea of the proof. So what I'd like you to do is put your video on pause and write up a proper proof using the method of contradiction of this result. And when you come back, you can compare your result to mine. All right, here's my proof. I begin by warning the reader that I'm going to argue by contradiction. So I say, suppose it is not the case that, and I'm basically putting in words this thing here, it's not the case that for every real number x, x squared plus x plus 2 is not equal to x minus 2. So then I say what that would mean, and basically that would mean that this happens. So I say, then there exists a real number x such that x squared plus x plus 2 is equal to x minus 2. And now I basically want to describe this calculation here and what it led to. So I say, after simplifying this equation, we obtain x squared equals minus 4. I don't think any more detail than that is needed here. And now we explain why that's impossible. Since x is real, it is impossible for its square to be negative, and so we have a contradiction. Now, the moment you achieve your contradiction, you have the right to say that the original proposition is true, and that completes the proof.